Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. We've got another edition of our Vine edition. And, we've got a very special guest. He's been very difficult to bring on this episode, and we're very fortunate to have him. I've got Mr. Nuno Pinheiro with Pinheiro Homes, custom home builder in Toronto, the GTA, and I don't know if you're doing anything outside of Ontario as well, but internationally maybe.
Not yet.
I feel like if you build something internationally, even if it's like a little IKEA furniture, you can kind of say you're an international builder.
Technically, if you just go and repair a wall, you could just put that on the resume or on the CV there. Yeah, that's a good idea.
We'll just say it's an international thing. But the reason I'm really excited to have you is, the last 2 years have been really, really interesting, obviously because of COVID, but the impact of that on the real estate world has been really interesting, where we've seen tons of people rush to the market, tons of investors, but we're also seeing a slightly different trend where a lot of people are just doing renovations and building out, and that is kind of a big trend these days. So given that this is your business, what are your thoughts on the trends and how this has all affected your business right now?
Well, it's affected us quite a bit. As you know, during COVID, we had some restrictions. Some of the restrictions didn't all apply to us on the construction side, but over the period of COVID, especially starting now in this spring and in this new market now of spring and summer for 2022, we've seen a lot of people transition from, instead of building new homes and flopping around where they're selling and flipping homes, they're more renovating their personal residence and adding all those features that they would typically go out to. So things like a gym or an office have been like priorities for a lot of people. And then on the higher end, people have been adding theaters and swimming pools, saunas, spas, that type of additions. Yeah.
Now, do you find that because the prices of real estate is like extremely expensive, and the kind of property you can get in, let's say the GTA specifically, is very likely going to need some sort of renovation? Do you find that it's probably just, for a lot of people, it just makes a lot of sense if they have the budget for it and the patience for it, obviously, to just buy something and just build it custom, basically?
So new builds from custom, like start to finish, have been slowing down a little bit just because of carrying costs, the time, where the renos, people have been able to not only save money on land transfer tax, lawyer fees, real estate fees, they're grabbing all that money that they're saving and tossing it right into the renovation process to something that they already own. So they save the time and a little bit of money to be able to attain some of the items that they wouldn't necessarily add into their houses.
Just my opinion, because we're seeing a lot more of it on our teams. A lot of people are just looking at the cost benefit analysis of, if I sell my home, I have to pay my realtor some fees, I have to pay a lawyer, and then I have to buy something else, which is going to include land transfer taxes, at almost very likely some additional cost to do some minor rentals or big rentals, new furniture, all that stuff. And I think just looking at all those, just the costs alone, very often just makes sense to renovate your home and freshen it up, add the office that you were talking about, add a new kitchen, maybe add a rental unit as an example.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's more logic, a lot more sense to that right now.
Right now there is, yeah. You're essentially, instead of paying to move, you're adding that money into your soft costs or your actual physical costs of construction, instead of having to incur more and more costs just to move out. So it's a big trend, and we've also seen the rental market, right? So a lot of people, they're happy with the space that they have. Some people may say they have too much space, so they're adding in a basement apartment or a laneway suite to kind of help offset some of the costs of living, or maybe they haven't been working as much, whatever the case may be, right?
Well, you mentioned something interesting, because I know you were working or maybe already finished up a laneway project in Toronto, and that's pretty attractive, because I know for a lot of our clients, they like the concept of having a rental unit, but they don't like the idea that someone's living in the basement and there are families living on the top, for example. But the laneway house is interesting because it's literally a separate building, but still on the same lot, basically. And what is your thought on laneway homes in general and the process and all these things?
So the process at the beginning was quite complex. It's starting to get a little bit more simplified on the city, like between getting your permits and all that process with the city. So in that sense, it's getting better. It's almost streamlined to the same process as a regular building permit. It makes sense. Most people have a garage either to store their car or to store as much junk as they can put together. So you go and you turn over that space into a living space or a rental property or an Airbnb, where not only you can cash flow, but you still keep a little bit of your storage or your parking space. It's great. It should be almost mandatory or pushed through. There should be more incentives for people to do it because it's a great product. We finished
financially.
Even financially, yeah. I don't know how it works on the mortgage side of it, on your end of it.
Yeah, it's a little tricky, man. I'll be honest with you. Like I agree with you. I mean, it's a lot better to spend, whatever the cost is going to be, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to build a laneway home versus trying to buy something of the equivalent price point that is very likely not even a cash flow. The challenge is on the financing side. The banks are a little bit behind with offering solutions. So some banks don't do them. Some of them do it on exception. So it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest option right now for financing. But I think the banks realize that this is a really attractive option for homeowners, and it's a very attractive financing solution. And as big cities will continue to have more people come to the cities, and the supply of housing continues to be an issue, this is a great way to increase supply and also provide good housing options.
That's right.
I'd rather live in a laneway house than in the basement of someone's house. So I think it's really attractive. What about some cool stuff that you're working on? Like any really cool features? I've heard of things like underground houses. People are literally digging under their homes and building out like secondary pools. You mentioned saunas and all these sort of things. Any interesting projects that you can comment on that you've worked on or you're seeing are kind of quite popular now?
Now that you talked about the underground aspect of it, we did a garage where what we did was we dug a full basement underneath the garage, and we were able to put in a car lift. And so the client has 2 parking spaces, and when he doesn't have the car below, he has it set up as a gym. So he'll pull out his bike and his storage, and he'll work out there or store his winter tires and so forth. So that was a pretty cool project. And what's another one? We're working on a brand new house that not only do they have the theater below the garage, they also have created a glam room.
What's that? Is that like a makeup room?
Think of a little bit more bougie than a makeup room, but
is it like one of these? Is it like one of these? What are these shows called? Like a Burgerton type?
Exactly.
Place to put on your makeup and get ready to go. That's cool, man. I don't even know.
It's like having a personal salon, like nail salon type of spiel in your house. It's a really, really cool feature, and it's designed really well. So
that's pretty cool. So with inflation's pretty crazy. I'm going to assume the costs for things are very expensive in your world as well. But I'm also going to assume that the supply chain is very challenging right now. So like what sort of advice would you be giving anyone who wants to either do some major rentals or a full custom project? Like what sort of feedback are you giving people that you didn't give them 2 years ago before COVID?
Even before COVID, the most important thing in construction is planning, and you have to have enough time to plan. Prior to COVID, we could get away with not planning as much because materials and trades, supplies, they're all readily available, or more options of readily available items. Nowadays, nothing is readily available. There's a few handful of things at the stores or at the suppliers you can go and pick up. Other than that, everything has to be ordered. So if you want to start a project, say next month, you should have pre-planned probably before Christmas of last year and ordered everything. So it's extremely important. One, have a plan, hire a contractor that will know what to plan for, and then two, prior to starting, order everything you need.
Yeah, so just whatever timeline you had originally, it's going to be longer, probably more expensive, and just be ready for delays and disruptions to
Exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
Dad, do you think that's a temporary thing? Like, do you think that maybe 1 year from now, or maybe a little bit more, things will be a little bit more consistent? Like, are you seeing some manufacturers or some suppliers kind of getting back on track at all, or it's still pretty slow?
We've seen some of them get back on track, and then there's going to be others that haven't gone back on track yet. They're still kind of falling behind. You got to remember, though, we were kind of working at maybe 20-25% capacity for the last like 2.5 years. So in 2.5 years, we weren't able to finish the work that we had, plus all this new work that's come ahead, right? So all the way throughout the whole industry, everyone's essentially 2.5 years behind schedule.
So they're still catching up.
They're still catching up while things are still flowing in.
Well, to kind of wrap up some of the chat here, if you had one bit of advice or one thing that people should stay away from, or just be, based on your experience, what's one sort of advice you just want to share with people and say, like, don't do this stuff, even though you think it's good, just don't do it. Anything like that, you can maybe save people thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of money that, people ask for, but generally doesn't work out the way they want to, or maybe is a lot more expensive than they thought it would be.
Oh, that's a difficult one to answer. Everyone has their own way of spending money and living through it.
Or is there anything that you feel like a lot of people will ask for as part of the design, but they're always underwhelmed? Like, they think it looks great on paper, but it doesn't really deliver the same maybe enjoyment or the same practicality. Is there anything?
I would say a lot of people, I won't specify one specific thing, but a lot of people, it's like that whole notion of going to the grocery store on an empty stomach. Yeah. Before they start, they want the world. And then when they start to realize the time and the cost of it, they come to grips with reality based on, like, they'll have these crazy ideas and notions based on what they see on TV and thinking it's going to cost $5 when it really costs $100. So that you see a lot more often than not. So always try
but sometimes it's just, I think it could just be, it's not possible to do that because this particular thing is clearly not available for another year, or this particular part of your home will not allow you to do this sort of construction or whatever. So I think maybe pivoting and being ready to make changes on the whim.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You can plan as much as you want and have the perfect design, but the design, the construction, it's a living organism. It's changing daily, sometimes 3-4 times a day, there will be a change on site. So you have to be prepared this is the product that you asked for, but this product can change 5%, 10%, 20% throughout construction or from time of
so just be ready, be ready, plan. Whatever your budget is, it's probably going to be higher. So make sure you have a financing plan. Hey, Nuno, I have a question for you. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm in the forest here.
I didn't notice, no.
I have to look at it now. I purposely did this call in the forest because the name of your company is Pinheiro. And I don't know if are these pine trees? I think they are pine trees. Can you tell?
They look that way, yeah. I'm not an arborist, but
I just wanted you to note the attention to detail. So it's in the back. Well, thanks for being a part of this. I know that you guys are really busy in your industry, and always nice to chat with you. All the best.
No problem. I appreciate your time, and sorry it took so long, but we made it happen. So
thanks, buddy.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.